All right, here we go. So yes, this has been a passion project of mine to do this with, I guess now my good friend Mr. Justin Perez here. Talk about sports that I love with the Marlins, the Heat, Panthers, sometimes Dolphins, but I just figured hey, we'll just do just one little episode here, talk about the the halfway point of season of the Marlins, talk about surprises that I've really found, some disappointments, and a little bit of a preview for this weekend series versus the Milwaukee Brewers. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here with you, Colin. And hopefully, this is the first episode in what we can hope is a long podcast series talking about our favorite teams here in South Florida.
yeah, well, I guess really just with some big surprises throughout this 7 games above 500 team for the Marlins is, even though I'm going to put really asterisks on this towards the end, is Clayton McCullough. Um, I feel like with his management style and his what he's been doing with this young team and instilling a culture of winning, always fighting, even if it's a blowout against the Braves, he's done really well at that. But and this is a tweet I have read on Twitter before, I do most definitely agree with is for a lot of good he has done. Man, does his bad decisions really speak loudly. Hey, I don't want to harp on it too much on him because I think he's done a lot of great things. But man, there's some instances to where it's like you sit back, you look at, you're like,
No, yeah, I know. Clayton McCullough, he's like for me. When I view him in like I guess two different ways. Like as you mentioned, I view him very balanced in a very balanced way because you mentioned that he's done a lot of good and he has done a lot of good. I feel like Clay McCullough, his personality, while I'm not fully in favor of it all the time, because I kind of feel like he needs to be a little tougher at times with the players. um, I do like his personality from the standpoint of, it kind of feels like he's very nurturing towards his players. He's very understanding. I can kind of get a sense that he respects them not only as baseball players, but also as human beings. And that goes a long way in building a solid winning culture. And you can see that with where the Marlins are headed. Obviously, last season, I believe they finished with 79 wins, right? It was like
yeah,
79 and 83.
78, 79 wins.
Yeah, yeah, and Clayton obviously, he's not, I think last year was his first year if I'm not mistaken. So he's still a young manager. He's still learning the ropes of this business for sure, and he's still learning how to lead a team, how to guide a team, and it's definitely not an easy thing to do, especially, when you're coming, from an organization like the Dodgers, coming from that organization, it's kind of hard to translate what you learned from that franchise over to a franchise like the Marlins, who is, they're trying to find their way and they're trying to build something special here. But you can kind of get a sense that there's a winning culture that's being built here where the players respect each other, the players and managers respect each other a lot. It's reciprocated. And you can kind of get a sense that Clayton doesn't put a lot of pressure on his players to, I don't want to say perform great, but he he's not the type of manager that's on the players constantly. He sort of lets them breathe, lets them walk on their own, lets them, you know, do what they feel is necessary for them to be successful. And he's given them a lot of responsibility. Um, and you can kind of see that that style is working. It's definitely taking some time. And obviously, this season, this team got off to a pretty rough start. I believe there were 10 games. Yeah, I weren't.
It was
I
8 games, I
8
believe,
games. Yeah,
when the series in
mhm.
Queens ended, and then they honestly, I mean, I forget the name of the guy who does the recaps for Marlins Network, but when I've watched this team again, knowing my background in baseball is being a strength coach and watching baseball when I was working in college. Um, yeah, I do agree. It's majority of it besides offense is a lot of mental mistakes that they just kind of got rid of, except for I would argue this last series against the Guardians, to where it showed periodically with like the Otto Lopez error, the Kyle Stowers getting picked off on second base, which that's more like just luck more than him just bad base running. Honestly,
I
that
was dumbfounded when that happened. I was like, how did that happen? He was caught napping by second base back, but like you said, yeah, that was more luck.
but it's a lot of things like that really, once they're kind of gone and once they can do a little bit of playing good defense, having the good pitching, obviously the bullpen, holding your breath sometimes when
Yeah.
certain people out there, which I'll get to certain people eventually, but
Oh, for sure.
it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of stuff that I haven't really seen since that year in 23. But I feel like this is a lot better team than that 23 team, and it's kind of my first kind of big surprise really was with Clayton McCullough this year and all that.
No, yeah, for sure. Clayton's improved. You did mention his bad decision making, and that's really, really noticeable, especially when it comes to the bats. Like some of these lineups he use. I don't know. I don't know. From what I've heard, Clayton is not in charge of putting the lineups together. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the whole coaching staff. I don't know if they get together, have coffee the morning of the game, and say, "Okay, this is what we're doing." I don't know if it's God be willing. I don't know if it's Peter Bendix or somebody in the front office, but whoever's making the lineups, there's just some batting orders that you look at almost quizzically, and it's almost like, why are you leaving out, for example, I'm just going to throw out a name. Why are you leaving out Liam Hicks out of the lineup, and then you're going to put him into pinch hit like in the seventh inning, and expect him to get a base hit or something big? So, I have noticed that a lot. And then there's times where he's putting guys that aren't batting well, like Leo Jimenez. I've had a big gripe. I have had a major gripe with the whole Leo Jimenez situation.
Oh,
He has been playing better. He has been putting together
yeah.
better at bats, but it was like it was almost to a point where it's like he was batting under 200. Why are you putting him to pinch hit when you have, you know, freaking Kyle Stowers or somebody else that is batting better than he is and that can actually make something happen? So yeah, I mean, some of the decisions you can kind of see, and some of them have really backfired
I would
during.
argue the bullpen is more indicative that I would really say the lineup, because I know he's very
Yeah.
big on platooning guys, even though I'm really much for giving certain people like Owen Casey bats against left-handed batter or left-handed pitcher, excuse me. I'm very much for that, but I understand, hey, it's worked for them. Platooning guys has worked for them, despite my real disagreement with people like seeing, Lionel Jimenez, despite him being better, yes, and a guy for whatever reason that I don't know why he got called up, but he did in Reese Hines.
Oh yeah.
I never, with all due respect to him, I just know. I
No,
don't.
exactly.
But
Exactly.
Navarado, I mean, I don't have an issue with him because he's there for his defense. But
Yeah, yeah. Navarreto, he kind of reminds me of there were the Astros. They had a catcher. I forgot his name. Um, he was mainly known for defense, but when it came to those offensive abilities, it was almost non-existent. I forgot his name. It's not coming to my mind right now. But yeah, that kind of reminds me of what's going on with Navarreto. He's a solid, good backup catcher, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want him. I don't. I don't think Navarreto's defense should be that much like. I don't think that should be as prioritized when you have Joe Mack behind the plate, who's just as good already. I mean, you can make an argument he's just as good defensively, and he could make he could actually produce better numbers offensively. But yeah, it's this team. They're a young team, and you mentioned that the fundamentals, they're a little questionable. Sometimes we've seen Otto Lopez for as great as a year as Otto Lopez has had. There's been moments defensively where it's like, dude, how did you screw that up? How did you not play that ball off the hop? How did that
yeah,
ball slip through your fingers? But
yeah,
yeah, but so you see a lot of fundamental mistakes, especially when with the base running. Is a lot of it luck? Absolutely. Is a lot of it so, or some of it, with the lack of attention. Yeah, sure, but despite that, despite the flaws that this team has, you could really see that they're on an upward trajectory, and they're playing a really really fun brand of baseball, and I really enjoy watching them play.
Well, I was going to add on to that part with base running, a guy that I didn't really think really much of when they signed this guy, but a guy that I've really enjoyed watching play is Esteri Ruiz. Um, I always get tripped up with his first name because I've heard it, but I would assume it is pronounced as Esteri Ruiz. I
That's the
really do
Udi.
like this guy more than just him running the bases, really just him hitting. I mean, I think ever since really that Dodgers series, like back in I want to say May,
Yeah.
it's been really like delightful thing to really watch him at the plate defensively. I mean, him and Owen Casey, you like to see better out of, but it's not really so much of a hindrance having to watch him play defense when he's doing a lot of things on the base path, that I've personally really enjoyed that. Now he's leading team with 20 steals, stolen bases. It's a great thing to watch from Ruiz.
No, yeah, absolutely. And with Esteudi Ruiz, he's been such a surprise. Like, I don't think anybody would have expected him to come into this situation and produce at the level that he has been.
With the
Uh,
bat, really. It's
yes, yes, with the bat, he is consistent at getting on base. Every single game that he's in, you can at least expect him to get on base at least once. If he does it more than once, that's huge. That's big. But yeah, it's like every game he's always finding a way to get on base. He does have an impactful bat. You could really see that. Is he gonna go out there and light up the place offensively? No, but he could definitely be a spark plug when the team needs it, and we've seen that several occasions this season. And I think when you talk about the biggest surprises, when you mentioned that, he definitely should be listed as one of them, because I wasn't expecting him to be as productive as he has been, especially for a player that's a spot starter.
yeah,
Because he's come off the bench in some games, he hasn't been in the lineup in others, and he started in other games. So the fact that he's been shuffled around and he continues to produce results at his own pace, I think that's very very encouraging.
yeah. I guess we want to talk a little about the pitching because I can sit here all day talk about Otto, talk about how great he's been, X. I do
Yeah.
want to I always really like to give some people some in their moment of spotlight. A guy that I guess going from last year, I was not very shaky on, but he's done really well this year despite getting hurt in this past game against the Guardians. Is Michael Peterson.
Oh,
Now, this is something
yeah.
that I literally had no idea, but at one point, his whip was below one. It was like 0.98 at one point. It's gone back up to one. But man, he's done very well. And the other thing I'm very surprised to really see, but not shocked at the same time, is the fact that he leads the team with 16 holds, which is really great for a guy like him that I wasn't very high on last year. He was very shaky at times. But now we're you have a guy like Pete Fairbanks who has to allow his government mandated run. You start to wonder like, hey man, like for as great as Pearson's been, and I'm gonna get to a little bit part later with a little bit of my disappointment, but I really would like to really see a combination of him, John King, try to close out a game here or there because he's earned that opportunity to do so, in my opinion, with how great he's been out of the pen.
No, yeah, absolutely. You touched, Michael Peterson, and he's been one of the, I guess, shining stars of the bullpen. You mentioned the bullpen. It's really it's a good unit. Let's not get that twisted. Like the bullpens are really, it's a great great unit. For who they are, and they've been producing, and Michael Peterson's been one of the leaders in producing from the bullpen. He could give you a solid inning or two every other night or every night. He has been shaky at times, but so has the rest of the bullpen. But man, this, whether if it's between him or Lake Bach, or who's also looked good, John King, I really feel like any of those guys can be capable of getting saves. Even Tyler Phillips. I know Tyler Phillips has been, as of late, I think ever since mid May, he's been, thrust into the starting rotation because of injuries
Yeah.
and whatnot. But I even think he can close the game as well. Um, it's very disappointing what's happened with Pete Fairbanks because I mean I remember I think it was in January we signed him. I was like, great, 1 year, $13 million contract. Yeah, it's 1 year, but screw it. He's one of the best closers in the game,
Yeah.
and
And
mhm,
at the time, you had Ronnie too.
yeah, yeah, and it's unfortunate what happened with Ronnie Henriquez. You wish that he was healthy. You wish that he was here with the group. Unfortunately, he's not. But when we got Fairbanks, I was like, oh my god, like this is a great bridge option. And so Ronnie, comes back next year, healthy, and hopefully gets back to his former self and keeps improving. But he's just been very disappointing. So it's almost like the closer situation has been sort of like rotated different guys. I actually wrote it down here as a matter of fact. Good thing you brought that up because I was curious. There's one, two, three, four, five, six.
Yeah.
There's 8 different guys other than Fairbanks who have recorded save. So it's like we don't really have that closer, that guy who could come in and shut the door. So now is that guy on the roster with one of the people that we have? Maybe you look at a guy like King, Phillips, Anthony Bender. I don't know if that's an option. I know Bender
I
is
wouldn't
more
mind
used.
him. I mean,
Yeah, me neither.
he's hurt
Because
right now, but
mhm.
once he gets back into it, I wouldn't mind him, with that frisbee style pitch of his.
No, absolutely not. Especially when it gets guys out. That's what you want. You want a guy that could go in the ninth inning, get those last 3 outs to shut the door and end the day. So I wouldn't mind him at all. Phillips is capable, in my opinion. Peterson, John King, maybe Lake Bacher. I know he.
No, not
No, no.
look. I like Lake. He's definitely improved a lot. He's a D3 product. He was a D3 kicker.
Yeah,
But I don't mind Lake Walker as a guy that he comes in. Let's just say like the 7th inning, 8th inning, 6th inning. He gives you like 2 innings to 3 at most, and I don't mind that. I really do like Lake. I think he has improved a lot. Yes, I know a lot of people are gonna have him being ingrained as the guy that not only blew the perfect game, but the no hitter and the
uh,
shutout, which that game as a whole, that's 90% on him and 10% on Clayton because
yeah. You gotta
you
get those
can't you
outs,
can't
man.
do nothing about that one.
You gotta get those
You
outs. No,
gotta throw
yeah.
your hands up and just be like,
No, yeah, and I remember that game. Yeah, I remember that game in Sacramento against the A's. I remember when Bacher came in. I'm like, this is a great move by Clay and McCullough. There's nothing wrong about this move at all. And then he proceeds to almost forget about the perfect game. He almost blew the whole thing entirely. I'm
yeah,
just thankful we got that win. Forget about the perfect game. I don't even care about that anymore. Forget that because I'm just happy we were able to get out of that situation and still find a way to win that game because that was unnecessary. That whole inning was just unnecessary. That was the fact that he struggled that bad. It was like it
yeah,
was just it was like it was absolute just like my brain was about to explode. Like it was just short circuiting. It was malfunctioning. I couldn't believe what I was seeing in that game. But Bogger, he's good. But yeah, I do think that then again, this coaching staff, they've thought outside the box a couple times before. So don't be surprised if Bacher actually is out there in the ninth inning, although I highly doubt we'll see that. But do not be surprised if it actually happens. But as far as closers, potential closers on this roster, for me, it's Peterson, Bender, Phillips, and King. Hopefully, King comes back from that injury soon. I forgot what is he on the IL for? Is it something with his
I,
arm?
I believe it's like a leg injury. To my last understanding, I have looked at, it's a leg injury. I'm not sure to what extent, but he's he's slated to come back. It's after the Astros game, so I think it would be that first series back against the Padres.
Yeah. I looked it up right now. A left ankle sprain, a
Yeah,
left ankle sprain. So he's on the 15-day IL. He was put on there July 9th. So I think your timing is pretty well. I think we could see him back in the San Diego series, which I hope, because I think out of I think out of everybody in the bullpen, I think he's been the best. I mean, it's up for debate, but I don't think he's had one bad outing at all. Every time he's come in the game, it's almost like he gets stuff done. He gets his stuff done, and he does it well. He has a lot of poise on the mound, and you know, he's not struggling at all. So, it'll be interesting to see, if he'll get put into that closer situation. But, I want to real quick, when it comes to the closing situation, I've seen on, and I want to get your opinion on this. I want to see what your thoughts are on about this. But I saw the whole thing about Aroldis Chapman, and I'm
Yeah.
saying to myself, I think I haven't looked at his contract. I think he's on the last year of his deal in Boston, and he's making basically the same amount of money as Fairbanks, 13 million. I think it's 13 to 15 million. It's in that ballpark. Um, but I know we're the Marlins, so being involved in trade talks for a big name pitcher of any caliber, let alone Aroldis Chapman, it's kind of weird, especially on my end, to be seeing that. But what do you think about adding him to this roster? Like, do you think obviously, I think it's affordable. I think it can be done, but the question is, what would be the asking price for him? You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if he's worth going after now, especially if that means we have to discard prospects from the minor leagues. But I just want to get your thoughts about that. What do you think about bringing or potentially bringing Chapman over here?
Obviously, and this is something I will talk about later with part of the disappointment this year. But yeah, I don't mind Rolls Chapman. I think he's a really great guy. Obviously, you kind of know what you're getting from him. He's
Yeah.
known to hit 100 plus on that fastball, which is great. But I feel like, for I'll just partially talk about it. For how great the bullpen's been and all that, there's one thing I would really like to get another starting pitcher on this team, preferably a lefty, maybe a
Yeah.
righty if you want to, but there comes a point, as much as I really like these bullpen games and how great they've worked, you really do tax a lot of these guys. And this is kind of partially why you see some of these injuries occur, is because of
Yeah.
that. I mean, the recent example of this is William Kempner, a guy that I've been a big stand of and saying, hey, this guy should get more. I still believe he should get more looks, but
Me too.
yeah,
I
I,
really
I
do.
don't know what exactly it would cost to get Chapman. I mean, I would have to imagine it would involve Fairbanks because of the money, but prospect wise, I that's a good question. I wouldn't know, but um, it's kind of like my overall thoughts on it as we get closer to the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very interesting situation to monitor, because you ask yourself, okay, yeah, this team is in a good position now. They're 7 games over 500. They're literally in the playoff race. But they want to win, and now they're in a position to where they can win, but they're not at that level where, okay, we got to go all in and go after these guys and make these big trades. So that's interesting to monitor. Like, is Peter Bendix, is this front office, are they willing to give up a couple of their prospects? Because that whoever's going to be in the running for Chapman, if Boston wants to get rid of him, which I'm sure they will, because I don't think they're even close to a
They're
playoff
not.
spot right now. Yeah, they're like last place in the AL East, right? Or close to last place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've had a pretty bad season. So with the position that they're in, I'm sure they're going to be asking, a pretty penny for Chapman. Um, so I guess we'll see what this front office does, is, in terms of the approach they take. Me personally, if they're not asking for the house, do it. In terms of prospects, if they're not asking to give up, if they're not asking the Marlins to give up more than just a couple of, mid-tier prospects or maybe a higher end one, then fine. But if they're asking, a lot, then I wouldn't do it. And I would just keep working with guys like you mentioned, Kempner, who I do believe he should get more looks as well because I think he can be a good major league arm, especially out of the pen. Um, but yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see how Peter Bendix attacks this situation. And it's not like, that's the only need as well, because as you mentioned, we still need a starter because, of course, with these bullpen games, they've been working out pretty favorably for us. But that's a lot of mileage that you're putting on these guys. And let's just say we get into the postseason, you don't want your bullpen fully out of gas because if that's the case, then, you're done. So I do think we need another starter. I would love a lefty just because I think we're righty heavy as it is. I don't think we need another righty at all. I would love to add a
Yeah.
lefty just to kind of switch things up and kind of give the rotation some more balance. And of course, we still got to figure out the situation at third base, which me personally, just as you are with Kempner, I'm the same way with Javier Sanoja. I think he should be getting everyday starts at third base. I know he's a utility guy, but I mean, he was a Gold Glover as a rookie last year for a reason. So, and this year, he hasn't lost a step in his defensive, ability as at all. So I want him to be the everyday third baseman, but knowing how they've used him, I don't think that's going to be the case. So it's like we have three major needs: third base, a starter at the end of the rotation, and a closer. So it'll be interesting to see how Peter Bendix attacks this trade deadline for sure. And I think it's when is the trade deadline? It's August. Is it in mid August?
No,
Is it
it's
by
like the
mid August?
first August, like it's that first, like
First
August
week, right?
1st, somewhere around there.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, okay. Yeah, first week. So you pretty much have what, 2 weeks, a little bit more than 2 weeks until the trade deadline.
essentially.
So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this front office handles the situation, how they attack it, how they view it, and what they do to boost this roster as the race for the postseason continues.
But yeah, I mean, I guess there's one last thing I do want to bring up as a positive towards this year is a guy I really am the biggest fan of all is my man Tyler Phillips. Um, he has had to do a million different things for this team. Be an opener, sometimes be the closer, sometimes get the last nine outs, and now he's a starting pitcher, which it's worked. I'm not going to say here it's not, but he is armed that I do. It's another point I'll get to later. I do worry a little bit because, hey, I mean, he's done starting pitching before when he was with the Phillies, but I think I'm not exactly sure because I now they got Jansen Junk back, and I still don't know what on God's earth they're doing with Braxton Garrett. But for as much as I
Me
love
neither.
Tyler Phillips, as much as he's done a lot of great, I think we both agree on this point very wholeheartedly that he is a high leverage inning guy. He should be really much used like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just mentioned, Phillips. He's like without Tyler Phillips on this roster, I don't even know where we would be right now. We would probably be in a much worse situation than we are right now. Probably still be out of the playoff race, let alone having a chance. We wouldn't even without him. We would not even have a chance. Let's just put it there because he's done, like you said, so much. He's open games, closed games. He's come out of the pen. He's given you a couple innings if needed, gets the last nine outs. He started games. He's given you length. So he's done a lot. So, to me, I think when you think of Swiss Army knife pitchers, he's definitely in that conversation as one of the best Swiss Army knife pitchers because he can excel in any situation. And he has, especially as a starter, it's worked. Obviously, he hasn't won a start in a while. I can't remember his um, the last start that he won. But yeah, he's been solid. But I do worry about him. I really do because I do agree he is a high inning leverage guy. Uh, but yeah, I'm worrying about him a lot because he's pitching so much in so many different situations that you really got to start asking yourself like, is this guy going to be okay come mid to late September? Because God be willing if we're in a race to get that last wild card spot and if he's not in a good position with his arm, then we could be in trouble. So I'm definitely worrying about him and his health for sure, because you definitely cannot afford to have a guy like that run out of gas.
Yeah. Well, I guess now would be a good opportunity to talk about some of the more disappointing things about the year. And I've alluded to it sometimes, but I feel like now is a good time. Is that for me when it comes to watching this team, and I've said this in some group chats, I've said this to myself, man, there is some real moments here to where you're just like, man, they really do need more starting pitching on his team and more like I would really argue as much as we want to complain about Leonel Jimenez and Javier Sanoa, how it's kind of been. I mean, not really much Javi, but you know how third base has been kind of an issue this year. I really would like to say that starting pitching's really been the number one thing. That's because they've had a guy like Chris Paddock, which
Oh God,
yeah
yeah, that did not work out.
it did not work out, even though he went from was it the Rangers, the Mets, or whatever, and now he's
Yeah,
China. I mean, Braxton Garrett for his really terrible first start against the Twins, and then what was I forget his last start, but his
me
second
too.
start,
Yeah.
I think it was against the Braves. But you know, I really like to see him called up. I've been a big proponent of him for a while now, and I'm glad to see him back playing baseball. But I don't know what they're doing, man. He's been playing in AAA Jacksonville for a while now. He's done a lot of great stuff. I understand that he's not going to always have the stuff be to have flash or whatever, but he can get guys out. But I don't know
Hmm.
what they're going to do with Braxton Garrett if they're not going to try to call him up, try to be that fifth starter like what Tyler Phillips is, or what now for a guy I've been a big fan of too, Jansen. But if they're not going to give him a chance, if they're, I would say he's a guy I think they could trade. If they're gonna, whatever they're gonna do with Braxton, if they're not gonna do anything with him, I would just say, hey, just please go outside the organization to try to get a guy in. Because man, you brought up too for how for a lot of these great bullpen games, you really want to save a lot of these guys' arms, like in Phillips, Michael Peterson, Bacher. You want to save those guys' arms for when it comes time to win games in late August, September, and October.
No, yeah, exactly. I do think that the pitching, to me, third base is not even the biggest issue. I think people saying that third base isn't it is the biggest issue. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily wrong, but let's just be honest here. Pitching over hitting any day. Like you can't expect to push forward and put up a fight and actually go deep into the season and have a chance, like you mentioned, in late August, in September, if you don't have pitching that could actually get you there. Uh, to me, pitching is almost as important as the quarterback in football. Like you can't go where you want to go without solid pitching. And you need depth, and right now we're lacking that in the starting rotation at the end. So I really believe that that is the biggest need. And you know, Braxton Garrett, I am completely on board with giving him a chance. I do think he deserves a chance, um, especially late in the year. Like let's just say like we're comfortably in a postseason position. You know where we're like a couple games ahead of the last team who's trying to catch up to us for a wild card spot or whatever the case may be. I'm okay with giving him a chance to start some games. I think he has a lot of potential. I mean, he is a top prospect for a reason, and I do believe in him. I do believe he has the skills to be a consistent starter in the majors. So, but the way they're using him now, it's clear that they're not heavy on him. Like they don't want to, I guess, put him in a situation where they're forcing him to be that starter. So I do think that going after, somebody in the trade market is the biggest area of need for the Marlins. Now, as far as who's available, I don't know who's going to be available right now. That's the question because like more than half of baseball, the entire American League, they're still fighting for playoff position. I mean, the American League postseason picture is wide open. I mean, there's teams under 500 that still have a legitimate chance to win their division. American League West, I'm looking directly at you.
Yeah.
So you don't really know who's going to be available, in a few weeks. So, but I do believe that the end of the rotation is the biggest area of need for the Marlins, especially if they're not going to be giving Braxton Garrett much of an opportunity now, which I'm not that opposed to either. I don't mind him being in the minors. Um, so the Marlins, Peter Bendix, and the front office, they really gotta do some deep thinking, which I know that they will because Peter Bendix, he's a very deep thinking guy. So, and he was quoted as saying that they're going to strategically add players at the deadline. So, I know that they're going to be playing, a game of cat and mouse, trying to figure out what they want and who they need to get to fill up some of the holes that are on this roster.
Yeah. Well, you brought up before about, kind of being stuck in the middle of no man's land a little bit. A guy that, again, I would also argue he's probably, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment because of like some of the expectations he's had coming into the year. And now he's kind of like in no man's land in Jacksonville. And now they're only now starting to talk about him possibly playing first base is Augustine Ramirez.
Yeah.
I mean, look, yes, the defense is always going to be an issue with him.
It's non-existent. It's non-existent if he's
there.
behind the plate. Well, yeah, true.
Sometimes it's there.
Sometimes it's there, but it's like every once in a while, it's like you see a glimmer of it, and then it goes away, and then you don't see it for a while.
But man, dude, just even just for like a DH arm, man, like I don't know, like what the deal is now with what they're gonna do with him. Funny enough too, when I have my still screenshot of predictions made for this year. I posted on Reddit just for the heck of it. I had him as one of my biggest disappointments, and I really wanted him to be wrong because this is something we'll get into a little later in the show. Whenever I make predictions, I really want to be wrong more than I am right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, man, dude, I don't know what they're going to do with Augustine because it's like, he's stuck in AAA. Brian Alvarado, even though he's an older guy, I mean, he's kind of like, I guess now the third catcher now, sometimes second catcher because
second string, third string, yeah.
It's like, yeah, with Hicks, he's done great at first base now. He's done great at DHing. I mean, yeah, I would like to see him catch a little bit more just to make sure he still has, still gets his reps in a catcher, even though defensively, I mean, yes, he's better than Augustine Ramirez, but the bar is set really low for him. But man, I really had a lot. I mean, yes, they're trying to like count their losses now with Augustine, trying to see if he can play first base, play the outfield. I don't care, but they got to do something with him. I don't know what it is, what they're going to do with him. But man, this is, I want to say like the second full year from that Jazz trade. You still have a lot of question marks with a guy like Augustine.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I've given up on him because I haven't, but the time is definitely not on his side. It's not, because if you look at what's going on here with the big league club, you mentioned you're trying to play him at first base, but you have Hicks, but now you also have Kyle Stowers. Look at what's happening with him at first base. He's pretty much seen an uptick in his performance ever since he made the move from left field to first base. And now he's proving that he's more than capable of holding his own there, and he looks really, really comfortable. So
I would argue too that for what it's worth, I know it may be a little bit of maybe a reach a bit, but I would argue too that he's Gold Glove level at first base. He's done really well defensively at first base.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I'm sure, of course, he still has a long way to go if he wants to get to Gold Glove caliber, but he's already shown shades of being that type of first baseman. And he has excelled defensively at the initial corner. So, Augustine Ramirez, the time is ticking fast with this guy. And it's like, nobody's going to keep a guy in an organization if there's no room for him. So now you're seeing the first base bag getting taken up. The DH is always, Hicks. And then if it's not Hicks, they usually have someone else at the DH spot. So, Augustine, time is not on his side and things are not looking very good for him. I'm hoping that he is able to, find some type of solution, find some groove, because I do want him to be on this roster because, of course, he's not the greatest defensively, especially behind the plate, but I think that could be negated and looked over pretty easily, if he becomes a consistent bat, almost like I'm not comparing him, so nobody don't go crazy, but if he could be like almost like a David Ortiz kind of guy, where he's primarily a DH and he's always seeing results. If he could become that, like a bootleg version of that, then great. But considering where how the season has gone and how the positions have gone, it's hard for me to see him coming back and being a consistent contributor on this roster. I don't want to give up on him because I don't. The talent's there, especially in his bat. But things are not looking promising for him right now. They're really not.
All right, but kind of like the last disappointment here, which I'm gonna make this quick, and then we'll get into the preview because this last one is really just more about particular stat and what this guy's done this year with his walk rate. I watching this guy last year, I never had an issue with him. He did his job. He did fine. Whatever. This year, man, Calvin Fauché, man, that walk rate of his, man. When I tell you what I checked last time, it was 15% walk rate.
Yeah, it's Calvin. He's to me. There's a lot of candidates that you could take a look at. Like for me, I like to. There's a joke that I like to make. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde reference. Like where one moment he's doing great, and the next day he's like completely off. It's on and off with Calvin Fauché this season. I think he's like one of the biggest victims of inconsistency, that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde inconsistency that I like to call it. Yeah, he's definitely walked a lot of guys, and he's definitely been disappointing at times. He's still useful. He's still come in, at times, and he still looked really good. He's still done his jobs, pretty well in certain games. But then there's other games where he just, like the wheels fall off, like in the blink of an eye with this guy. He's just inconsistent this year. That's the best way to put it. He's inconsistent. You want him to stop walking guys because, again, for a reliever, 15% walk rate, that's ridiculous. So I'm hoping that he gets his stuff together again, and hopefully, he becomes consistent again. But it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this year is going to play out for him. But I'm kind of on the fence with Fauché because, like I said, he's looked great in some moments, and then there's other moments where it's almost like teasing because it's like he comes into a game, he does a good job. All right, nice. You get that confidence in him again. And then the next game he comes in and then he blows like a 2 or 3 run lead, or he gets pretty close to doing so. And then Clayton has to go to the bullpen again and get another arm to finish the inning. And it's just sometimes a mess with this guy. But, hopefully he could become, consistent again. Hopefully he can be, what he was last year, because we definitely need that from him. We definitely do.
Yeah. All right. So this last little section will just be a little preview for this upcoming weekend series against the Milwaukee Brewers, with the Marlins' old friend and Christian Yelich, one of my favorite Marlins of way back then. I'm gonna briefly talk about mine because I did not realize that my computer is at 10%, and I thought it would last a little bit more, but that's okay. It has 10 minutes. That's fine. So as of right now, the matchups are still not set, but for what it's worth, the Marlins won't have to face Mizorowski, the Miz, whatever you want to call him, and neither going to face Woodruff, which, hey, that's
No.
also great. So they have the matchups right now on Fangraph as it's Sandy versus Logan Henderson, Yuri versus Brandon. I don't think
Sproat, yeah.
Bro, okay.
Brandon Sproat,
Like, there's
yeah,
no
yeah,
way
yeah.
it's Sprout.
No,
So
yeah. I
it's
thought it was Sprout too, and then I looked it up on YouTube. Like, oh, it's Sprout. Okay.
and
Yeah.
and Sunday is Max Meyer versus is Shane
Shane
Duran,
Drowan.
or
Yeah, Drowan.
which that could probably be a bullpen game because that's one of their relief pitchers. So again,
Hmm.
you're basically playing, the fourth, fifth best pitcher, more favorable matchups against the Brewers. Obviously, they're a great hitting team. Contreras, Trang, my guy Yelich, you know, defensively, they're always going to be great. Offensively, yeah, they're going to annoy the heck out of you with all the bunting that they do. But, this is kind of one of those series, again, that I'm going to just say for some of my keys to winning is, hey, pitching's got to be, they got to continue to do what they've been doing. This is your top three guys, which is unfortunate for me because I'm going to have to unfortunately see Jansen Chunk in Houston on Monday, but it's whatever. It's Jansen. All right. But good defense, no mental mistakes. It's clear when they are locked in, their focus. Errors don't happen with this team.
Yeah.
And the last thing, and this is kind of the last thing too, that I always will kind of keep saying this till the day I die. You gotta score more than 2 runs. I know it sounds ridiculous and sounds
No,
like what on earth, but when you
you're
watch this
absolutely
team,
correct.
score more than 2 runs, 9 times out of 10,
They're
they're
gonna
gonna
win.
win.
Exactly. Exactly. Again, baseball. You win, score more runs than the other team. Got to score more than 2 runs. 2 runs is not going to cut it for sure. It's not going to cut it, especially against this team. And I was going to make the point. This series against Milwaukee, it's almost like a mirror match, because they play a lot of small ball. They excel. You mentioned all the bunting they do, and my God, do they bunt a lot. This team bunts a crazy amount, a lot. Like they love bunting. They get on base. They're not a big power hitting team. Their number one power bat is probably Jake Bowers, one of the infielders for Milwaukee. He leads the team with 18 home runs. But the fact that their leading home run hitter only has 18 home runs, that says a lot. This team just, they have a lot of contact. They have a lot of speed. They like to steal. Again, it's almost just like us, literally like us. They like to steal a lot of bags. They like to run along the base paths. They have speed. They like to put the ball in play. They have a lot of contact bats, a lot of bats who hit for average more than for power. Um, and they definitely can score a lot. This team, as a matter of fact, I wrote it down. They are fourth in the majors in total runs scored. So this team scores a lot of runs. So we're gonna have to definitely, keep up with them. We're definitely gonna have to score more than 2 runs. We got to take advantage of runners in scoring position. That's been like our Achilles heel all season. Like we just struggle time and time again when it comes to RISP situations. Got to take advantage of that because if we don't, we are screwed. So, that's definitely a major area of concern. But as you mentioned, this pitching staff that we're going to be facing is depleted. You mentioned Mizorowski. He's not fully out yet. Originally, he was scheduled to miss this series, but I saw an article on Yahoo yesterday saying that he could be back on the bump soon. Whether that's this weekend, we don't know. The matchups haven't been announced yet. We will see. But I'm not expecting him to be on the mound anyway, just because he's having that arm fatigue. But Mizorowski, he's a big maybe. Woodruff is out the rest of the year because he had a shoulder problem. He's going to get a second opinion on it. And also Kyle Harrison, he's out. He's on the 15-day IL with left forearm tightness. So, yeah, we're going to be facing Sproul. We're going to be facing Henderson. We're going to be facing Drohan, most likely in a bullpen game. So we're going to be facing these young arms for Milwaukee. The rotation, we're going to be facing a depleted rotation with Milwaukee. It's definitely going to be the younger arms, Sproat, Henderson, Drohan. Um, so we do have an advantage here. We have the healthier starting rotation, if you want to use that term. Um, but yeah, so what this series is going to come down to, it's going to come down to scoring. You got to match, you got to outpitch them, which I think we have a great chance to do because the guys that they have on the bump, at least the guys who are slated to start, they're not the greatest and they don't really have a huge sample size. They don't really have a lot of experience. Brandon Sproat, he's pitched in 18 games this season. but and Drohan's also pitched in 19, but he's mostly been out of the bullpen. They've had, they are decent. They are. Drohan has a 3.09 ERA. Henderson in 6 starts, the first six starts of his career, I believe, he's done really damn good. A 3.18 ERA, 39 strikeouts to 7 walks. And Brandon Sproat, of course, he has a 5.16 ERA. He's been struggling a little bit. 18 games, 16 total starts. Um, so yeah, so definitely, at least on paper, without Mizorowski and without Woodruff and Harrison, we do have the upper hand as far as pitching is concerned. Um, and I do know for a fact that Max Meyer is going to start the second game. Saturday's game, he will start because he got interviewed. I forgot who it was. It was somebody from the Miami media who covers the Marlins. I believe it was somebody from Fish on First. And at the All Star game, he did say he was going to start the middle game. So he will start, so that's good. Um, I don't know. I'm sure Yuri's going to get a start. He might be the starter tomorrow for Friday's game. And then the bullpen game, that might be the final game of the series. So we'll see. But, our pitching situation is definitely in a better spot than theirs right now. But, the key to winning the series for me is hit, hit. If you could score, then they're gonna win this series. It's that simple. Especially with how they are, you got to match what they do. If you don't match their production, then you're gonna be in trouble pretty quick.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would agree. I mean, just kind of closing it out. Yeah, this first episode had a lot of everything in it.
Yeah.
Besides my computer battery dying in the middle of it, which I mean, hey, if you wondering where that massive cut came from, that's where it came from. Was my computer dying? It said 5 minutes. I said, okay, we're gonna write it out for 5 minutes. It died, and I'm just like, but yeah,
Technical difficulties.
it's fine. We'll just other than that, I guess for the next episode, it will be after the Astro series, since I will be there. This will be my first ever Miami Marlins game that I get to be there. It'll be Monday
Yeah.
night, that first game in Houston against the Stros. I'm very excited to see that. Not only to see my team, to hopefully see someone hit a home run for me, but
Oh,
to
that would be
also
great.
see some of the Astro greats like Jose Altuve and Jordan Alvarez.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a fun series, but hey, gotta win this series first against the Brewers. That's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially this, to me, this series is a must win because you're coming off the All Star break, so you wanna right off the bat get the good vibes going, but you also wanna get away from that Cleveland sweep because that was just, to end the first half of the season on a sweep. It's just such a horrible, horrible way to end the first half of the season. Definitely a bitter taste in everybody's mouths with that. So yeah, so definitely, this series is a must win. Get back on track, get back in the win column, and keep the good vibes going, and keep yourselves in a position to where you're in arm's length of first place in the NL East division, while also holding ground for that last wild card spot. Because I think the Cardinals are only a game behind us, so you want to try to keep ground with your playoff positioning, and this would be a good way to start.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. But hey, it's been a lot of fun doing this today, despite the issue I had. But that's okay. Yeah, man, can't wait to do the next episode when we're talking about these next two series with the Brewers and Astros on hopefully Wednesday, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm definitely gonna be enjoying doing this with you, and hopefully we can do a lot more episodes in the future. This is very, very fun.
All right,
All right, everybody, take care.
take care.